Happy morning, children. We learned in the human nervous system in the previous class. We learned about what is nerve, what is the structure of nerve cell when it is observed under microscope, or neuron, how the neuron looks, what are the parts it composed of. Then we discussed about conduction of nerve impulse, how the neuron, when the stimulus is applied on the body, after any stimulus is applied on the body, further how the neuron or nerve cell conduct the nerve impulse, the conduction of nerve impulse. In today's class, we are here to discuss about these things. The number one, we'll discuss about nerves, then we'll proceed to this reflex action, then reflex arc. So nerve, as you know, nerve is a white thread-like glistening structure. What are nerves? Nerves are white in color, that glistening structure that forms a long fiber in the body, similar to the electric cable present in the electric circuit as the electric wire. A similar kind of nerves will be there. So as nerves, they are further classified as sensory nerves, motor nerves and mixed nerves. So sensory nerves, they will have only sensory neurons in them, sensory fibers in them, and they carry nerve impulse when any stimulus is applied from the effector organ, the site where the stimulus is applied, from that effector organ to further spinal cord and brain. So example for sensory nerve, we can take optic nerve present in the eye. Optic nerve, when the sclerotic layer, choroid layer ends, choroid, scleroid and choroid. These and retina, the innermost layer. The retina further goes and connect to the brain in the form of optic nerve. So the optic nerve, we can take example for sensory nerve. And the next one, motor nerves. The motor nerves will have only motor nerve fibers. Sensory nerves contains only sensory nerve fibers, and motor nerve contains only motor nerve fibers, and they are responsible to bring back the nerve impulses from brain back to the spinal cord, from spinal cord again back to the effector organ. So this is the function of motor nerves. And what about the third type, mixed nerves? Mixed nerves will have both sensory nerve fiber as well as motor nerve fibers. The mixed nerve is composed of both the type of neurons present in them, sensory as well as motor. So we call it as mixed nerve. Example for mixed nerve, we can take spinal nerves. Spinal nerve is a good example for mixed nerve. As you know, spinal nerves are 31 pairs and cranial nerves are 12 pairs. So altogether 43 pairs of total number of nerves in our body are 43 pairs. A spinal, the nerve which arises from the spinal cord of the body, as the backbone spinal cord, the nerves which are arising from the spinal cord, we call them spinal nerves, and the nerves which arising from the brain, we call them cranial nerves. So they are in 12 pairs and spinal nerves will be 31 pairs. So this is about nerves. Sensory nerves are composed with both sensory nerve fiber and sensory nerve fibers. Motor nerves composed with only motor nerve fibers. Mixed nerves are composed of both sensory nerve fiber and motor nerve fiber. For this we can take example optic nerve in the eyeball. For this motor nerves, the muscles present in the eyeball, we can take example. For mixed nerve, we can take example spinal nerves of our body. So this is all about the nerves. Now next, what we have to discuss is reflex action. What is reflex action and what is reflex arc? Reflex action, let me tell you the definition first. What is reflex action? Certain involuntary actions several involuntary reactions we come across with. At that time, for example, when any normal stimulus is applied on our body, at that time sensory neuron generate nerve impulse. The nerve impulse generated by sensory neuron goes from that particular effector organ to spinal cord. From spinal cord it further goes to brain. This happens. In some involuntary actions means some minor stimulus. When a normal stimulus, for example, your name is Santosh. Somebody calls you Santosh. The moment you hear the sound, you look at him. And we know the hot objects like iron box. If you touch the hot object, you will get burned. We know that. So the moment we touch any hot object, we withdraw our hand back suddenly, immediately. So this kind of involuntary actions of our body are performed or generated without the involvement of brain by reflex arm. So what is reflex arm? The component which performs this process. What is reflex arm? The component which performs reflex action is termed as reflex arm. So what is reflex action? How to define? What do you mean by reflex action? When any normal stimulus is applied on our body, at that time the sensory neuron generates a nerve impulse. The nerve impulse generated by sensory neuron goes to the spinal cord from effector organ. At that time, the spinal cord itself judge it what kind of change, what kind of stimulus it is, and generate the response back through the motor neuron without the involvement of brain. Such kind of involuntary actions generated by spinal cord itself without the involvement of brain we call as reflex action. Are you able to understand? Reflex actions or involuntary actions are performed by reflex arm without the involvement of brain. Brain is not involved in this process, reflex action. When the reflex actions takes place during any normal stimulus. If the stimulus is complicated one, at that time the spinal cord, when the sensory neuron sends the impulse to spinal cord further it will send to the brain. Then brain will analyze what kind of change it is. Then through motor neuron from the brain the information, the impulse come back to spinal cord. From spinal cord it come back to the effector organ. This happens generally during complicated stimulus. During normal stimulus, reflex action happens. At that time spinal cord itself take and try to judging what kind of change, what kind of stimulus, and gives the response back through motor neuron without the involvement of brain. So we call it as reflex action. Is it clear? So reflex action, the component which perform reflex action, this process are called reflex action. Now look at this. Come to this. The diagram is drawn here roughly. We know spinal cord. So a cylindrical elongated long structure, spinal cord. If you cut the spinal cord transversely, if the transverse section of the spinal cord is taken, transverse section of spinal cord, thin transverse section of spinal cord, and the spinal cord is observed under microscope, the thin transverse section of spinal cord, it appears in this way. So this is the transverse section of a spinal cord. Look at this yellow color. This is a transverse section of spinal cord. Inside, we can see this entire surface, this area, the complete area is called gray matter. What it is? Gray matter. In this area, dendrites and axon of several neurons are present. So it appears to be gray matter. This is gray matter. And you can see this. It looks like a letter H. This one. This is horn. H-shaped letter is in the spine. This is a spinal canal. A spinal canal at the center, and this is a dorsal horn. Dorsal horn of spinal cord, and this one is the ventral horn. This one is a dorsal horn and this is the ventral cord of spinal cord. When the spinal cord transversely, if it is taken, the section of spinal cord is taken transversely, when it is observed under the microscope, it looks like that. Here, the arrangement of neurons. Here, say, on the dorsal horn, which neuron will be this is? This is sensory neuron. Is connected in this way. And we can see here, this is a motor neuron. See, in a transverse section, we are able to see sensory neuron on the dorsal horn of spinal cord, and here this one is a motor neuron. These sensory neuron and motor neuron, here they both are connected with the help of this connectivity. This is interneuron or connecting neuron or associating neuron, connecting neuron, which connects sensory neuron with motor neuron. Like this is the arrangement of reflex arc. So this is a component. This is the reflex arc. This reflex arc performs reflex action process. Now take example. So here, these sensory neuron and motor neuron are here. They are connected to our body part. This is the body part. When any stimulus is applied here on the body part, what happens? This body part, this site, this location, this place is termed as effector organ. On the effector organ, this is our body muscle. Here stimulus is applied. The moment when stimulus is applied on this body part, the sensory neurons generate nerve impulse from this body part. It goes to spine. At that time, this is an involuntary stimulus, a normal stimulus. So stimulus is applied, sensory neuron generating nerve impulse. The nerve impulse generated by sensory neuron from this body part, effector organ, is going, where it is going to the spinal cord. At that moment, spinal cord, it will not send that information, whatever the stimulus, to brain. He himself will take the decision, he will analyze and immediate the answer, the replay in the form of nerve impulse is sent back to the effector organ through this motor back, and we are able to know what kind of change it is due. So this happens. So when any normal stimulus is applied, sensory neuron generate nerve impulse. The nerve impulse generated by sensory neuron goes from effector organ to the spinal cord. At that moment, spinal cord itself analyze it, judge it, and use the response back through the motor neuron back to the effector organ. This kind of normal stimulus performed by the reflex arc without the involvement of brain is called reflex action. So this is it for today, children. In the next class, further part of this nervous system will be discussed, like brain, functions of brain, etc. So we'll stop here. Take a break now. Thank you.